Hi there, Fashion Crossroads fans. It is Kylene coming to you live from downtown Casper, Wyoming, and this is Wednesday night wardrobing. If you're not familiar with this or with us, we are a women's clothing store located in the heart of Casper, Wyoming. This is our 50th year in business. It's a second generation woman-owned business. And each week I do videos that I call Wednesday Wardrobing, and each month is based around a different series or topic. And so this particular month we are working on fabric, talking about fabrics, what they are, how to understand the terminology, how to understand what it is that you're looking for, how to read a care tag. Next week, we're going to be talking about laundry hacks, how to take care of your clothing so they last a really long time. And then the last week of this month, the last Wednesday, will be a time for question and answer for you to be able to share your questions that I didn't cover in this series and to be able to get those answered. So that is the plan. I do want you to know, if you're a regular customer of ours or if you're new to us, we are having a very special one-day only sale this Saturday. It's called our Pinch Me sale. It's going to be in store both at Fashion Crossroads and our outlet store, FC Outlet, as well as on our online store. And it's going to be a BOGO on our sale items. So it's going to be the absolute best deal on sales of the year. So you're definitely tongue tangled tonight. You are definitely going to want to check that out. So our website is www.fashioncrossroadsinc.com. All right, so last week I covered 6 or 7 fabrics. I didn't want to overwhelm you with too much information, so I broke the different fabrics that I'm going to cover into 2 parts. This is part 2 of that. So tonight well, let me tell you what we covered last week in case you missed that. You can grab that video on our YouTube page, Fashion Crossroads Inc. So last week we looked at cotton, georgette, jersey, linen, modal, polyester, and rayon. And tonight we're going to talk about silk, spandex, tweed, velvet, viscose. And then I'm also going to go over a couple of weaves with you, satin and twill. And then I'm also going to go over some terminology about how we refer to things. So like when you are trying to communicate with a sales associate, you know how to ask for those kinds of things. All right, so we're going to do all that tonight. All right, so first and foremost, let's talk about the rest of our fabrics. So silk is our first fabric tonight, and it is in there with cotton and linen and tencel, in that it is a naturally occurring fabric. It obviously comes from silkworms. It's known for its strength, sheen, and luxury. It's generally used in formal attire. I have one line that I get in every summer that is 100% silk, but generally in the store, the only time I see silk is as a blend. So it's blended into other things rather than 100% silk. Because if you have 100% silk blouse, you're looking at $100 or more. So it is expensive, but given the beauty of it and just understanding that worms produce it, silkworms produce it, that has to be harvested, that has to be spun. Just like we talked about with cotton, you know, with any of those naturally occurring fabrics that are not synthetic, that have to be grown, that have to be woven, spun, turned into fabric, you should expect to pay more just because of the labor that goes into those things. But the benefit that you get is more breathability, usually longevity if you take care of them well, and just a nicer feel on your body. But the big one is breathability, because the synthetic fabrics are woven so tightly that the synthetic fibers are woven so tightly that you don't have any chance to get airflow. So that's why when you put on a polyester blouse, you get hot, because there's no airflow through the fibers. Whereas naturally occurring fibers have spaces in between the threads, and that is what allows that air to flow through. Linen is going to be the best. That's why you see linens in tropical climates. Cotton is going to be breathable. Silk is going to be breathable. Tencel tends to be, it's made from tree bark, and it tends to be a very tightly woven fabric. I'm sure that it is more breathable than a synthetic fabric, but it's not going to be as breathable as like a cotton or a linen or a silk. All right, so next we have spandex. We're all familiar with spandex. Spandex is kind of like Google. You know how we say, I'll Google it? Because Google has become so synonymous with searching online. We don't say, I'll Bing it or I'll Microsoft Edge it. Right? We say I'll Google it, whether we're using Bing, whether we're using Microsoft Edge, whether we're using Firefox, whether we're using Safari. It's become synonymous with the idea of doing a internet search, right? So spandex is the same. It is synonymous with elastane and lycra. So you might hear people say lycra, you might hear people say elastane. It is all spandex. So one of the things that I have heard recently is spandex referred to as almost a thing. So instead of being referred to as a fabric, there is spandex in this workout wear. My daughter will say, I'm wearing my spandex today. So that's interesting how she's 19. And Mom, I need some more spandex. And I know what she's talking about. She's talking about like her little exercise shorts that she likes, but her generation has taken that spandex term and even morphed it even more. So that's kind of funny how that happens. But of course, you know that spandex is the thing that allows you to have pants that do this. Right? It is the thing that puts the stretch in most things. And most things have some type of stretch in them. In cottons, a lot of times it's naturally occurring. Silk as a fabric does not have a lot of stretch in it naturally. Sometimes they'll blend silks with spandex, lycra, elastane, so that it does have some stretch in it, but this is spandex, right? So the thing with spandex is, as a fiber, it doesn't love heat. So a lot of times, if you have, like Simply, for instance, asks you to wash their fabric on cold water, because the spandex threads, if it's heated, can actually pop, and then they'll poke out of the seams. So you do want to be careful with items with spandex in it that you are following the manufacturer's instructions, because it does not respond well to heat. So that is spandex. And then next we have tweed. And so tweed is your kind of classic, you know, woolen looking things. Most often it's used in blazers, in woolen slacks. That is the most typical place where you will see tweed. You know, it can be nubby, it can be smooth. There's a lot of different options with it, but it is most synonymous with like menswear jackets, suit jackets, and warm weather clothing. So that is tweed. I did not have any silks in the store, so I don't have an example of silk for you, but we're going to talk about viscose and satin here in just a second. So next is our viscose, which viscose has become kind of synonymous with satin. And satin is the name of the weave, not the name of the fabric. All right, so the fabric might be polyester. This is a polyester satin. The fabric might be viscose. This is a viscose satin. And what what it will have in common, what the satin will have in common, is that it will be soft and silky, and it'll have a beautiful drape. So just keep in mind that satin is actually it refers to the weave of the fibers, not the fabric itself. So a lot of times when you're looking at satin fabrics, and satin, actually, I'm doing it again, at polyester satin fabrics or viscose fabrics that have that silky kind of satiny look, you are dealing with viscose and polyester. That's 90% of what you're dealing with. And polyester, you're all familiar with. We covered that last week. Viscose is a newer fabric. It's a little higher end kind of a fabric used for these kinds of tops. It's part synthetic and part natural. It resembles silk because of the wood pulp that is used in its creation. This wood pulp gives it a very similar look and feel to silk. It is often used in clothing items that might have been made from silk, like blouses and dresses, but it's much less expensive. Obviously, because anytime that we can reduce the amount of effort that goes into the production and the use and the creation of a fiber, it's going to be less expensive. So you get viscose. It's the closest thing we have to true satin. It's less expensive. It's usually more expensive than polyester, but it also has a much nicer feel. Now, as I'm standing here, you guys can probably not tell the difference. They're both shiny. Can you see that one? This one is not showing the shiny quite as well as this one, but it's shiny. You can't tell it to look at it from a distance, but you can tell it in what we in the industry call the hand of the fabric, which means the way it feels, the weight of it, the quality of it, the density of it. All of those things go together in what we call the hand of the fabric, and you feel that difference between those two when you actually touch it and feel it. One being a little bit nicer quality, one being a little bit less. All right, I also wanted to talk about Tencel with you, because Tencel is another natural fiber. That's one that I referred to at the beginning of the video. That's not quite as lightweight as some of your other natural fibers, but it's incredibly silky soft. And Tencel is generally pretty expensive. So I have noticed, like, this is not Tencel. It looks just like Tencel and feels just like Tencel. However, it's a little bit lighter weight than true Tencel. This is actually Lyocell. So Lyocell is another one of those synthetic blends that is mimicking a natural fiber. It's mimicking Tencel, but it's not as expensive. So it makes it more accessible for the normal person. And a lot of times you'll find Lyocell blended with other things like spandex to give it stretch and to improve the feel and the satinness of it as well. So this is just exactly what Tencel looks like, but actually Lyocell. All right, then of course we have our velvets. Everybody knows what a velvet is, right? You can tell a velvet always, because if you go the wrong direction, it feels weird, right? So velvet is, let's see what my little sheet says. The fabric is known for its soft and luxurious feeling. It is shiny and soft and often used for dressy fabrics, especially those for the holidays. That's normally when we wear it. Velvet can be made from cotton, linen, wool, mohair, and synthetic fibers, but it was very first made with silk. So in the beginning, velvet was made with silk. So that kind of explains why velvets were seen as a luxury fabric, because if it's made with silk, obviously, it's going to be a higher priced item. And it's just amazing, honestly, what they are doing with synthetic fabrics now to mimic other fabrics. They have really got it down. Like, there's times when I cannot tell that it's not natural until I look at the fabric tag. So definitely doing a lot with synthetic fabrics. All right, so now let's talk about, let's see, twill. So twill is another word that refers to the weave and not the fabric. Denims are always twills. And one way you can tell a twill, it's known for the diagonal design in the fabric. You can't always pick that up, especially if it's really tightly woven. But one way you can always recognize twill is it will be lighter on one side and darker on the other. So your denims are twill. They are woven in with a diagonal fabric, whether you can tell it or not. So any denim, every denim is going to be twill, because that's the weave that is used to make the fabric. But you can also find twill in lots of other types as well. So just a little knowledge for you there. All right, and then I wanted to go over some other things that you might not know what to call them. All right, so tons happening with faux fur. And so that's how we refer to it. You know, some people say vegan fur, faux fur. They're both referring to the same thing. 90% of the time it's made with polyester. Here's another example of how great they have gotten using polyester to mimic natural fabrics like, or this would be a skin, natural skins like fur. But if you're trying to talk about non-animal fur or fake fur, then we usually say faux or vegan. That's also true of leather. So you have your genuine leather, and then you have your vegan leather. And a lot of times, you know, you can't really tell the difference unless you are smelling. That's how I always pick leather, is because if it's good leather, you should be able to smell it, right? The other thing too, I find that natural leather is much more breathable than a faux or vegan leather. That is the one big downside to vegan leather, is that it does, because 90% of the time it's made out of polyurethane. And so it doesn't have a lot of breathability. So that is one thing to keep in mind when you're shopping for your vegan leathers. And then if you get something like this that has all these little hairs on it like that, that is generally called mohair, a mohair sweater. So you know how to talk about that, how to refer to that. And then another thing that's really common is lurex thread. So if you see shiny silver or gold thread woven into something, that is lurex. The thread is actually shiny, and that is what gives it that shimmery look to it, all right? And when you have lurex in anything, it's also going to mean some special care. So you're going to want to make sure that you pay attention to that. All right, so I've given you a ton of information in the last two videos. I hope you've learned something. Next week, we're going to talk laundry. We're going to talk, all right, Kylene, here's all these fabrics. You've kind of gone over all this stuff. Now, how do I care for it to make it last as long as it possibly can? We'll see you next Wednesday around 6 right here on Facebook and Instagram. Talk to you later.